Welcome to the Rancher's Voice, presented by the Montana Stockgrowers Association. I'm Jay Bodner, MSGA's Executive Vice President.
And I'm Rayleigh Honeycutt, Director of Natural Resources. Join us for conversations surrounding policy, the legislature, and issues that matter most to ranching families in Montana.
Welcome to this week's episode. This week we're going to focus a little on the drought situation that we're facing and also some of the resources that are available to livestock producers out there. We also do have a call to action for the drought reporting, and so we'll be walking people through how to do that. And we also have an interview with Arin. He is the Senior Service Hydrologist for NOAA.
Yes, and as always, we just want to remind you to subscribe to the Rancher's Voice, follow us on social, like, share, and comment on each episode. Email us if you have questions at kenny@mtbeef.org. And again, sign up for our new free text messaging by texting BEEF to 855-965-4006.
So last week, the Montana Stockgrowers Association, we announced the launch of our Drought Resource Hub, and that's at our website, www.mtbeef.org. And one of the things that we, realized when we were looking for drought resources that it would be just more convenient for producers to find as much information on one website, and it's just easier to navigate that. So we put a lot of those resources that are available from different agencies on our website. It's a great up-to-date opportunity to look at all those resources, what's available, and as information changes, we'll keep that updated daily if we need to, but certainly on a week-by-week basis.
And we've had some members reach out with some great suggestions. So as Jay said, we are updating it daily and we'll be adding more content and more information to that as, information rolls out and resources become available. But if you have ideas or thoughts on what would be helpful to you, or if you have suggestions on other pieces of information that you're looking for, let us know and we'll help track that down and get that up on the Drought Hub.
Great. And so we also mentioned the local reporting. And so in our discussions with the U.S. Drought Monitor folks, it did come to our attention that your input is greatly needed and greatly appreciated. And it does have an impact on how the reporting is conducted with the U.S. Drought Monitor. So you can go on our website. We have that link on that our Drought Hub. So you can report both from a state and national reporting systems. It can be found on that Drought Hub. And really what we saw is, and we'll talk a little bit about it in the interview, is just that our weather stations vary so great across the state, and there's just a lot of distance between them that things vary from site to site. And so your input does make a big impact and is once again very much appreciated.
And if you are interested in doing that, as Jay said, it is on the Drought Hub. There's 2 big buttons. You won't miss them. And clicking through it, it's a very simple and fairly fast process. It asks locations. There's on one of the reports a pinpoint where you can actually pinpoint your location, asks how the drought conditions are for your location, as well as how it's compared to years past. And then they have an opportunity for you to upload photos. And I think the photos are probably one of the most important components to reporting. So somewhat fairly simple. You can do it off of your iPhone, and we really encourage as many folks to upload and get that information reported as possible.
Yeah, so just kind of moving on. So CRP grazing and haying, that officially did open July 15th, and it's certainly just not across the board, but how it does work is that those lands are available outside the primary nesting season to producers within that severe drought or drought areas. They counties are approved for the emergency haying and grazing for those counties that have hit the designated D2 drought severe designations, and they look at that every Thursday. They make that determination. So once again, take a look at that Drought Monitor map, and then also if you do have any questions, just go to your local FSA office and they can help you walk through that also.
And as a teaser for you to continue listening to the podcast in our interview, you get a preview of where the drought map may be moving for this next week prior to its release on Thursday. Additionally, we wanted to just cover a few meetings that are happening here in Helena. As much as the legislature is wrapped up, interim committees are fast and moving and meeting, as well as the ARPA funding commissions. And so we've participated and will be participating in quite a few meetings over this next week. So last week, the Water Policy Interim Committee did meet. They selected their chair and vice chair for this coming interim. Senator Jeff Wellborn will be serving as chair, and Representative Willis Curdy will be vice chair. Within the meeting, it was split over 2 days and about 2 full day worth of meetings. We heard a drought and fire update from DNRC that took quite a bit of time on the second day, as well as the committee heard study bills on projects that they have taken under consideration to do as study projects for the interim. We also had our MSGA Water Committee Chair, Rich Roth, there, and he attended and provided public comment on a variety of different topics, and just wanted to thank him for coming and chatting with the committee. Moving into this week, there's another round of interim committees. Thursday, we'll have the Environmental Quality Committee meeting on Tuesday, and on Thursday, Economic Affairs will be meeting. That Thursday Economic Affairs meeting includes updates from the Department of Livestock and Department of Agriculture. And then in between those 2 days, on Wednesday, we have the Economic Transformation and Stabilization Workforce Development Programs Advisory Commission. So this is one of the 4 buckets of American Rescue Plan funding, and this will be their initial meeting where they're going to determine what priorities will be and how that ARPA money will be distributed or prioritized within the economic transformation bucket. The other buckets, as we've talked about before, include water and broadband and health. The Water Commission did have their first deadline for funding. That was on the 15th. And so in the very near future, we should be hearing from them on scheduling time to review all of the projects that were submitted for that Water Infrastructure Commission bucket as well.
So if you do have some interest in following along with those meetings, those all are available on the website. It's leg.mt.gov. So they're all taped. You can watch them live. You can interact through Zoom also. So there's a variety of ways to interact or watch those meetings. So if you need any help finding any of those, please just contact us and we'll send you the link.
And they are similarly structured to legislature, so there is a Zoom option. And so if you do want to participate in public comment on that website Jay gave you, there are usually links to request time to speak. They are asking for both interim committees and ARPA for you to do it 24 hours in advance, and so they can get you that link and get you scheduled for public comment.
So now I'd like to introduce our interviewee for the week, and that is Arin Peters. Arin is the Senior Service Hydrologist at NOAA, and that is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And so welcome, Arin. Hello, everyone. Today we have Arin Peters with us. Arin is from Great Falls. He's located out of Great Falls. He is the Senior Service Hydrologist with NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And so welcome, Arin.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Today we're going to have Arin give us a little talk about just the drought situation that we're facing in Montana, and also just kind of an outlook of what we can expect over the next few months. And so I'll turn it over to you, Arin.
Yeah, so I guess it's probably no surprise to anyone listening to this that we're getting ourselves into a pretty significant drought situation in Montana. And it's kind of started last fall, really. We had a pretty dry fall, and then we continued to be relatively dry, particularly at lower elevations all through the winter. Didn't end up with much plain snowpack, didn't end up with even all that much mountain snowpack compared to normal. So then, fast forward to spring, and May and June are Montana's, generally speaking, for most of the counties in Montana, are the highest precipitation months of the year. And despite a few exceptions, May was okay for some folks, but dry for others. And then June was basically, not to put it lightly, or it is a disaster for precipitation statewide. Really, we just didn't have any precipitation to speak of in June, and that's really critical. Of course, again, folks listening to this know that that springtime precip is critical for forage production, crops, hay production, all that. So, and then, in addition to the lack of precipitation, we've also had pretty extreme temperatures. So over the last 90 days, most of Montana has been in the 90th to 100th percentile for temperature, which is very extreme. And you pair that with the lack of precipitation, and we've got ourselves into a pretty significant situation for drought. And so we're kind of this, in Montana, we coordinate with the U.S. Drought Monitor once a week. And starting this week, we are expanding drought again. That's what we've been working on actually this morning. D3 drought is extending through much of southwest Montana, further into western Montana. And of course, D3 drought has already been extended to much of central and eastern Montana. So, the conditions are certainly not going to improve in the short term, especially since climatologically we're over our wettest months of the year. So we're hoping at least that this winter will provide some relief, but that's yet to be seen.
So Arin, can you talk a little bit about, early, when you looked at the winter, snowpack was right about 100% in most locations, but can you talk to us a little bit about why that mid and lower elevation moisture is so important when you look at how we rapidly lost that snowpack so quickly?
Sure, yeah. So like you said, the high elevations did okay, and that's a good point, because many of the snowtail stations that we use for categorizing snowpack in the mountains are at the higher elevations. So we didn't capture a lot of the lack of snowpack in those statistics at lower and mid elevations. And that's very critical because we warmed up really quickly and we didn't have the low elevation snowpack to melt first. And so that early season snowmelt often fills up the reservoirs, or begins filling up the reservoirs, and that didn't happen. So we were relying solely on upper elevation snowpack, which was just barely near normal. And so the result is we are we've got less snowpack overall and less water supply in our reservoirs because of it. And then of course the demand is higher. So irrigation demand for those folks that can irrigate is higher because of the lack of precipitation and higher temperatures. And so it's kind of a perfect storm of a situation.
Arin, you mentioned about June, and June typically is kind of our wettest month. And I think we all in agriculture kind of recognize that and kind of depend on that. And yeah. I did look at a map this year, and I would characterize it similarly to you, as just drastic. I've heard that it was the driest June on record in Montana. Is that an accurate statement or not? The climate statistics may not be fully out yet for June. They do take a while to calculate. I do know that for two locations specifically, Glasgow is the driest on record since the late since records began in the late 1880s. That's since January 1st. So I believe Glasgow's got it like 3 inches of precip so far this year, which is about 5 inches below normal. Another station that's at record driest since the beginning of the year is Malta, and that so statewide, I don't know if we can categorically say that yet until the CPC gets all their data analyzed. But there are several locations that were record driest in June and have been record driest since the beginning of the year.
So you mentioned.
There's also.
Oh, go ahead.
I just thought of one more thing. So, my in-laws actually ranch down in Southwest Montana, and my father-in-law is a co-op observer for the National Weather Service, and he had 300ths of an inch of precipitation in June, and that's obviously basically nothing, and so that's just a kind of a picture of what a lot of folks are facing for June precip.
So that's a great tie into what I was going to ask you. So you mentioned the U.S. Drought Monitor, and we've really been pushing our members to report their local conditions into the service that kind of rolls up that information. Can you walk us through how that collaboration works? Because I know DNRC
Sure.
has data, you have data, U.S. Drought Monitor. So how do you kind of culminate all of that to make those maps?
So I'm glad you brought up the impacts, and so starting off, the DNRC and the state library combined to create a drought monitor impact reporter that is on the DNRC drought services webpage. And so you can go in, anybody can do it, any farmer, rancher, citizen can go in and report any kind of impact. And you can report wetness as well. So it's not just during dry years. We collect this information all the time. And it's very helpful for, us that coordinate with the U.S. Drought Monitor to get our voice heard. And so how that coordination works is there are 5 kind of liaisons to the U.S. Drought Monitor in Montana. I am one of them. And then there's 4 others. There's 2 from the state climatologist's office. The assistant state climatologist and the state climatologist are also one of those 5. And then the DNRC has a member, and then the state library also has a member. So what we do is we take 2-week shifts. And so like I am the coordinator this week and next week. So what we do is we have a listserv of folks all over Montana. And that brings up another point. If anybody wants to join in on this weekly email that we do, you can definitely let me know. And what we do is send out an email with initial recommendations. So the person who is on shift that week looks at the data, looks at where we are right now for depiction with the U.S. Drought Monitor, and kind of draws a recommendation for what we think we need to change, whether it's improvements or degradations. Then we send that initial recommendation out to the larger group and ask for feedback. So there's about 60 members on that email list. And so we collect feedback from those folks every single week, and then kind of collectively come up with a map that we think is representative of conditions and send that on to the U.S. Drought Monitor author, who changes on a weekly basis. And then they take our recommendations and tweak it or not. And that's how that process kind of goes every single week of the year.
So that does provide some assistance when you have maybe a local landowner provide kind of his situation. I know that, in many cases, just looking at some of those weather monitoring stations there, they vary quite a bit within kind of those counties and topography. And so is it useful for those individual producers to send their individual kind of, I guess, conditions of what they see on their ranch or at least in their area?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing about Montana is we don't have the luxury that some of the Midwestern states do of this enormous network of precipitation and weather stations, right? So we have very few, for the amount of land area that we've got. So all we can do is really data-wise, we can interpolate between stations. And oftentimes that doesn't capture everything. We get, sometimes we get thunderstorms that completely miss weather station, and maybe conditions have improved in an area and we don't even know it. On the other hand, maybe, for example, Jordan, Montana gets hit with a thunderstorm with a ½ inch of rain, but 10 miles south, they didn't get anything. But a lot of times that data gets skewed because of those precipitation events that hit a station. So the short answer is yes, it's very helpful for producers to send especially photos and then impacts. So if you are selling cattle because you don't have enough hay, or if you don't have the hay, that's also good to know. Or if you're an agricultural farmer and you are losing crops due to drought, or any number of things, those kind of things are really important because they help us coordinate those impacts with the data and kind of create an entire picture for the folks at the national level who are drawing the U.S. Drought Monitor map.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about what you guys are modeling or predicting moving into the next couple months, as August is typically our driest and hottest month of the year. What are you guys looking at and thinking about?
Yeah, so fortunately, there's not a whole lot of great news in the midterm, the next few months. And part of that is because of climatology, like you mentioned. August is often very hot and dry, and there's no reason to believe this year's going to be an exception. And that's why it was so disappointing to miss out on that June precipitation, because after the end of June, the hope of really improving things just dwindles drastically. So I hate to say it, but it seems like we're kind of baked for the growing season this year. There's not really going to be any improvement. And I don't think that's probably comes as a surprise to anyone. The one bright spot, and I don't want to get too positive, because there's it's 50-50 chance really, but we are looking at the possibility of a La Nina winter. So getting into a La Nina this fall and through the winter. And about 50% of the time when we have a La Nina, we do see greater than normal winter precipitation. So I would say the chances of recovering over the winter are maybe better than normal, but certainly not set in stone. We did, if you guys remember, we did have a La Nina winter last winter as well, and that didn't pan out at all like we would have hoped. But the most recent La Nina to that was the 2017 to 2018 winter, where we had exceptional snowpack. And really, we've been kind of riding that water supply that filled up the reservoirs in 2018 since then. And we're finally kind of using that up and getting ourselves into a pickle with water supply. But I'm really hoping that we can see that additional winter precip this year. And I think at this point the best we can hope for is improving over the winter and starting fresh next year. The one thing I could mention too, the official climate outlooks from the Climate Prediction Center are showing through the end of September chances for above normal chances for temperature and below normal chances for precipitation. So basically drier than normal, warmer than normal, continuing through the end of September. So, and of course that's certainly not going to help agriculture or fire season.
Yeah, that is definitely some challenges that we face. I mean, it seems like we typically get at least a little bit of precip kind of mid-September, and that certainly puts out a lot of the fire situations, or helps with the fire situations, and some of the seeding that occurs, and the farming operations, and really from cattle too. So
yeah,
so we may not expect much until hopefully, I guess, the latest October.
Yeah, and it may not be all doom and gloom, because those climate models that's a ways out. So we're talking months out, and that's what they're pointing to. So it might be areas of the state that do end up seeing some relief September, maybe even August. But it's just, I would just say chances are lower than normal of that happening. And oftentimes with those longer scale climate predictions, there are certainly pockets of better conditions. Within that, just overall the signal is drier and warmer than normal. So that's, it's a long ways out. So our prediction capability obviously declines as you go farther out. And so I guess in this case, I hope we're wrong, and I hope we get some relief.
Arin, if there are people that are interested in just looking what some of the predictions are or the forecasts are, is it best to go to NOAA, to the website there, to look at Montana, or where's the best place to look if you are interested in that and what the predictions are or forecasts?
Sure. The easiest thing probably to do is to Google Climate Prediction Center. So you can just type that into your browser, and that'll take you to NOAA's Climate Prediction Center, which they have a 6 to 10 day outlook, an 8 to 14 day outlook, and then a 1 month outlook, and then a 3 month outlook for both temperature and precipitation. So you can look at those. And that the Climate Prediction Center is mainly focused on that, near term to longer term, whereas like our local offices. So we have 4 National Weather Service offices in Montana, located in Glasgow, Great Falls, Billings, and Missoula. And if you're looking for, that first 7 days of a daily forecast, those are the websites that you'd better off go to for those. But if you're looking at like a week out to 3 months out, the Climate Prediction Center is a good resource to kind of see where those larger global scale models are going.
Thanks.
And from, I guess, just jumping to a bigger perspective and looking at nationally, this drought is not affecting just Montana. So how does that kind of impact things as Montana moves forward? Obviously, we're lucky enough we're a headwater state. But from your perspective, are there things that we should know about nationally as well?
Yeah, it always helps to put into perspective, looking at a broader map, because we are lucky, as you said, to be a headwater state. We're also lucky currently, even though it may not seem like it. This is our, kind of our first year of a big drought recently. So we're not in a multi-year drought yet, and hopefully it'll break this winter and will improve next year. It always helps me to keep perspective, because if you look at Colorado, Wyoming, even southern Idaho, New Mexico, a lot of the western and southwestern states, they've been in a drought for 3 or 4 years. And then of course California has probably been in a drought for a decade or more. And I think it definitely helps to put into perspective, because this is our first bad year in a while, since probably 2017. And there's, I guess there's always somebody that's got it worse than we do. But it is good to keep in mind, because I think as far as I've heard quite a few folks talk about hay availability, and there's not a lot of it, because all the western states are hurting. So that could be a negative impact with having a broader scale drought, is that we're just starting to see the effects of it, but there's nobody to provide a whole lot of relief. But looking eastward, things certainly are better. But certainly in our neck of the woods, we're probably in the best shape of all western states, which is sad considering where we're at.
Great, and you certainly are right on point when you talk about the hay shortages. We are seeing significant shortages in many places that simply had zero, and the availability is extremely limited, and going long distances to get it. So yeah, you're certainly right on point there.
It's unfortunate. I know there's there's some grazing associations that are having to bring their make their producers bring their cattle home early, reducing allotments. My family, in fact, farms in Fergus County, and they're cutting all their spring wheat for hay. And so there's just, I think there's a lot of that on a broad scale. It's not just a localized, thing, which is very sad.
I'll just wrap it up with this, and you may not have an answer for this, but from a hydrology standpoint, is there something that landowners can keep in mind if we are to get a good snowpack this coming year, that they can put into action to kind of capitalize on recharging or getting their rangeland into a better condition faster, I guess is what I'm saying?
I'm not sure I have a good answer for that. I guess I suppose doing anything they can to maybe not overgraze or anything like that would, is probably the best thing to do. But I understand that that's very difficult for folks if it's they only have a certain amount of land. And but I think what's going to be critical is starting off the water year. Hopefully we begin to see some precipitation in the fall. because probably a lot of folks know that the water year runs from October 1st through September 30th. So, and what that really means is that precipitation that falls after October 1st really benefits the next year. And so, I don't know what folks can actually do, but just knowing that and maybe realizing that if we do get some fall precip, it may improve conditions preemptively for next year, because that groundwater recharge, really a lot of that moisture stays in the soil, in the root zone, until the next spring. And what's also critical is if, getting a little bit of snowpack over the winter. So what happened this past year is we really had an open winter, no low elevation snowpack to speak of at all. And that allows evaporation of any precipitation we had, and so snowpack on the plains, as well as providing precipitation to the soil, also prevents evaporation of the moisture that's already in the soil. So I'm really hoping that we can get that winter precip this year, and I think if we don't, we're going to start to see a lot of restrictions on reservoirs. One reservoir that comes to mind in particular is Clark Canyon. We started the water year off well above normal in Clark Canyon, and we're well below normal already now at this point. So, that winter again is going to be absolutely critical for irrigators and anybody that deals with water supply from a reservoir. And I think that's kind of a picture of, overall in the state. Any federal or smaller reservoir is probably dealing with in the same boat.
Yeah, and we really have seen that in just even stock water pits and dams, and just that, kind of planning on that runoff to refill and recharge those reservoirs, and they simply did not occur, and those are pretty reduced levels too. So
yeah,
I would agree. Yeah, we'll hope for a good normal or above normal water year, so we can get many of those recharged and refilled, and see better conditions next year.
Yep. I really hope that's the case, because we're going to start to see ourselves, in the shape of some of the other Western states if we don't get that winter.
And I'll just jump in and encourage our listeners. We've been pushing it out, but encourage you to get those local, data points to folks like Arin. Now you have a face and a voice to who this information actually goes to, and it's a real human making real live decisions in real time.
Yep.
So the more information we can source to folks looking at the overall data, the better.
Absolutely. If you're not familiar with that impact reporter, just type into your Google the Montana Drought Impact Reporter from the DNRC, and it'll take you right to that webpage. And you just click on a link, and it asks questions. You can upload photos, and that information is priceless to us who are doing this on a weekly basis.
Great. Well, once again, I'd like to just thank Arin. We have Arin Peters. He is the Senior Service Hydrologist at NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, for joining us today. He provided some great information. And once again, that information is all available. We'll share those links. So once again, I'd like to thank Arin for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, once again, we'd like to thank Arin Peters for joining us today. Provided some good information that I think is important for us as landowners to know, recognize. There are also some links that he mentioned there if we want to find out some of that, those forecasts that you can look at, both from a local or state forecasting. And so that's important also. So once again, just like to thank Arin for joining us.
And want to remind you to get your local drought reports submitted to both the state and national level. As he mentioned in the interview, they do take a look at those on a weekly basis. And so it's so important to have that information available to them. We also want to thank you for listening to us today. And if you've been loving what you've been hearing, we want to invite you, if you are not already a member, to consider being a member of MSGA. You can join online at mtbeef.org/membership. membership, or just give us a call at 406-442-3420, and we would love to get you signed up. We also want to remind you to subscribe to the Rancher's Voice, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, like, share, comment on each episode, and get signed up for our text messages by texting BEEF to 855-965-4006. Again, we'd like to thank you for listening.
Thanks, everybody.